Welcome back to ADK Talks, the podcast from adktaste.com, your curated guide to the best places, people, food, history, and experiences across the Adirondacks. You know, one of the things we love most about producing this podcast is discovering that some places have so many great stories. One episode simply isn't enough. A few months ago, we had the pleasure of taking listeners inside the Hyde Collection in Glens Falls, where we explored its extraordinary old masters and the remarkable story of founders Charlotte and Louis Hyde. But that conversation also reminded us that the Hyde is more than a museum. It's a cultural institution that's constantly finding new ways to connect people with art. This summer, instead of asking people to come into the museum, the Hyde is bringing art into the community. It's taking art beyond gallery walls with its first ever annual Glens Falls Plein Festival. For 1 week, artists will transform downtown streets, parks, historic landmarks, and gardens into open-air studios, and everyone is invited to watch the creative process unfold. Joining us today is Foley, Curator of Education and Engagement at the Hyde. We're going to talk about plein air painting. We're going to talk about what plein air painting actually is, why artists have been drawn to painting outdoors for centuries, and why this new festival might change the way you see Glens Falls, and maybe even the Adirondacks themselves. Let's dive in. Caitlin, welcome to ADK Talks.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
You know, tell us a little bit about your role at the Hyde Collection.
So my role as Curator of Education and Engagement encompasses all of the ways that the public can engage with art and programming here at the Hyde. So that includes booking and facilitating tours of the Hyde and special exhibitions, as well as our programming that we do for roughly 3 audiences that I break them down into, which is adults, families, and youth programming. So we run programs for each of those audiences throughout the year. And so myself and my team of educators get to work with a lot of the people that come through our doors to engage with art here.
That's awesome. Let's just dive right in. What exactly is plein air for people who might not be familiar with the term?
Yeah, so plein air literally translates from French as open air or outdoor. And so it really is a way to describe painting that is happening not in a studio. So that's really the differentiator there. So it's really in the style of or in the manner of the 19th century style of painting that really brought this style of painting to the map, which is done by what we now know as the Impressionists. So artists like Monet, Manet, and many, many more that were painting in France. And so it really was a rejection or reacting to the Academy of Fine Arts at the time, who was really setting the standard for what art is and should be. And it was very much a style of highly worked pieces that are done in a specific style in a studio. And so these artists were really that are known as the Impressionists were really reacting to that. And it really gave some visibility to some avant-garde artists that were still making work, but just wasn't being accepted and shown widely because it wasn't part of this thought of what is art and what art should be. It was also very much a reaction to kind of changing the subject matter of what art was at the time. So art was needed to be scenes from like neoclassical times, mythological themes, could be biblical themes. So like history painting or still life painting was accepted, or portraiture. But this group of artists was really interested in going out and capturing a moment in time. And it really focused a lot more on like kind of modern industrial scenes or just modern scenes of what's happening out in the world today, just everyday scenes. And so that still follows suit, when you're talking about plein air painting today. It's really a reaction to a moment in time, specific lighting that's happening at that moment in time, and really that feeling that the artist is getting at that moment in time is what they're trying to capture on the campus.
That's great. How did the idea for doing this in Glens Falls come about?
I really have to give credit to my educator and colleague, Lisa Mancini. She is a wonderful educator, but she's also a wonderful artist herself. And she participated in many plein air festivals throughout the region and was really interested in the fact that Glens Falls doesn't have anything like this being her, hometown. And she travels to do these festivals and thought, why, this is such an arts rich community. Why do we not have some sort of festival that can really continue to put Glens Falls on the map as an arts destination, and really celebrate the quality of artists that we have right here in town? So it really, really came out of her idea of wanting to have something here. And so we've worked together on that for the last actually almost a year, but really dedicated for about 8 months to really pull this off. I will say that some people might say, I remember that the Hyde used to do plein air something. And we did do little one-off things where, as part of our community day events, our annual free day every year, we at times would invite plein air artists to come be a part of that. And so that is continuing kind of this tradition that we have had, but this is like the first time we've dedicated a full week and really planned a full experience for the artists as well as for the community around this idea.
That's great. The Hyde is thought of as a museum. How does a festival like this fit into your broader mission?
Well, our mission, really, Charlotte and Louis collected artwork that then they decided that they, really was the beginning of the intentions of collecting, that they wanted to give the artwork that they collected to the community. So really our mission is to really perpetuate this education and enjoyment of the arts and the fine arts in the Glens Falls area. So not only is it to have the museum here so that people can come to the museum and do that here, but also just to bring the arts to Glens Falls. And so that really fits really nicely with our mission.
Exactly. There are other plein air festivals in the Adirondacks, in Saranac Lake, I think in Keysville, Tupper Lake, but nothing really in the Southern Adirondacks. Was there any other festival that sort of inspired you guys, or anything that a model you followed or are following?
Definitely. Like I said, my colleague has been an artist painting in many of these festivals throughout the region. She has participated in the Adirondack Plein Air Festival, as well as the Adirondack Harvest Plein Air Festival that happens in fall in Ticonderoga. And so she was already pretty well connected with a lot of other artists, but also those people who coordinate and plan these events. And so we looked at the schedules and the history that these other festivals, specifically Adirondack Plein Air and the Harvest Plein Air Fest, and we got to speak with some of the coordinators and had them on our initial calls around how we should, set this up and how we should plan. So they've been really pretty heavily involved in our process of getting it to this point. They are all really established festivals, and we also didn't want to step on their dates either. So we wanted to make sure that we did it at a different time, that there wasn't anything else happening, because I know that some artists do participate in multiple, and so they might want to go travel up to Tupper Lake, Saranac Lake, and then also have the opportunity to come to Glens Falls. So certainly there's a lot in the region to look to for a great model, and so we were grateful for that.
About how many artists will be participating?
Yeah, we have about a little over 30 artists, 33 artists participating for the first time. That was the biggest unknown. We didn't know when we put it out there for artist registration, being the first year, what we would get. I do think obviously the Hyde Collection is a well-known name and institution, and so that was a draw. But what we found was that it's a lot of artists that we know. It's a lot of people that we work with in various different ways who were so excited to participate in this opportunity here.
That's awesome. And where will they be? Do they pick where they're going to paint, or do you guys design them? How does that work?
We have painting themes kind of every day, suggestions, I guess you could say, for where artists can paint. The only real restriction is that we ask that it be within, kind of the vicinity of about 25 miles around Glens Falls. I mean, we're not super strict about that, but we've also set up spaces and places that we're welcoming artists to paint so that it does capture various components to our wonderful town of Glens Falls and the surrounding region. So, for example, we have like a paint the lake day. So that could be any lake, really. It could be Glen Lake. It could be any body of water that's Lake Luzerne. It could be anywhere around here. But we've also set up 4 different institutions in the Lake George area specifically, actually, who were interested in participating, who've opened their grounds to the artists to come and paint. So we're so grateful to the Sembrook Museum, the Bolton Museum, and the Sagamore for opening up their spaces for our artists to come and paint. So that's one day. Another day is we've suggested people paint along the bike path here in town. So that obviously could go all the way down South Glens Falls, the beater bikes or the beater path, feeder pathway. We have, so painting along that. We also have an evening that we've asked them to come to Take a Bite, which is a nice event here in downtown Glens Falls, which celebrates the businesses and food that is so wonderful here in Glens Falls. And so we've asked people to come and paint scenes of that urban event. We have a day, obviously, of painting at the Hyde and different gardens here, encouraging them to do that. So it's really kind of driven by the artists and what they really want to capture, but we've given some suggestions so that they can find community within other artists and paint together if they wish. And also that we've advertised this so that people might be able to stop by and just see this happening.
See it. Yeah.
In live time.
For somebody who's never watched an artist paint outdoors, how interactive is the experience? Should people feel comfortable approaching them? Can they ask questions? Should they hold back? What's the
absolutely.
etiquette?
No, I would say
etiquette?
Go and introduce yourself and ask them who they are and what they're painting. They will be very open to sharing what they're painting. And actually, we have printed these little business card size cards that have all of the dates and times of everything that's happening for the week that we're giving to each artist when they arrive. So they'll have a whole stack of those. So when people come, they can hand them a card and say, hey, I'm participating in this Glens Falls Plein Air Festival. Here's some of the ways that you can see other artists painting. And then there is an exhibition component to this festival as well, which I haven't mentioned yet, but where we're inviting the public to come and see their work hung at the Hyde.
Okay, so when it's all done, a lot of this work will be displayed at the Hyde.
Yeah, all the work will be displayed at the Hyde that the artists choose. But also another good reason to go and talk to artists is that these artworks are generally for sale by the artists. And so if you're interested in purchasing anything, to have a real painting of downtown Glens Falls or a beautiful lake scene, that is a possibility. So I would say don't feel shy if you see people with easels outside painting.
So, say I'm out at Glen Lake or I'm in downtown Glens Falls and I see somebody painting, what should I notice? When I'm standing next to them, what should I be looking for in observing someone creating art?
That's such a great question. I mean, I think when we, at a museum, we come and look at art, and we can pick out things that we like about them. Maybe the subject matter might be notable to the person. Maybe it's the beautiful scene of the lake that sparks a memory. Perhaps it's just the colors that you're really drawn to, or perhaps it's a question. Maybe it's like, I'm not really quite sure what I'm looking at, but it's drawing you in to look a little bit further. So I think all of that still applies when you're watching someone. But what's so wonderful about watching something being painted live is that you can actually see the brush stroke of the artists themselves while it's happening. So you will probably notice color. You will probably notice lines that are happening at the time. You will probably notice different shapes that they're using. You'll notice the palette of paint itself that they're working from and the tools that the artist gets to use. I think that's the biggest part that we lose when we're looking at something just on the wall in a museum, is that we kind of have to put ourselves in the artist's shoes and think about, how was this made? Is it really big? Is it really small? Did they have to use really small paintbrushes or really big paintbrushes, or is it a palette knife? So you kind of get a behind the scenes look at what these artists are actually using to create their artwork.
I have to ask, what role is weather going to play? Like, what if it rains all week?
Well, it's certainly a component, right?
Right.
A lot of artists, I think, come prepared with big umbrellas or even maybe little pop-up tents that they can do that, or they situate themselves in a space that might have an overhang so that they can still do some painting. I know that like I've seen photos of other plein air festivals, and artists are quite dedicated to what they can create.
So the show must go on no matter what.
Correct.
Sort of like, what is it, the post office, neither rain nor snow or sleet or dark of night. Okay. That's great. Where can, if people are interested to know the locations and the schedule, where can they get that information?
So yeah, all that information is on our website. So on hydecollection.org, and you can go to the events tab, and there's a little search button. You can search in Plein Air Festival, or if you go to the month of July, you'll see it's listed there for all of the 6 days that's happening. So it's July 27th. So that's the Monday of that week. Artists arrive, check in, and then they can start painting at that point. And then it runs through August 2nd. But I will say our painting days are Monday through, well, really painting can happen any of those days of the week, even through the weekend. But the exhibition component will open on Friday evening on July 31st. And so those artists will be submitting, kind of we don't have a limit of how few or how many. We've just given each artist a set wall space. We're actually so excited for the first year of this festival. We have a break in our exhibition schedule. And so our 2 galleries, our Whitney Renz Gallery and our Hoops Gallery, which are right off of the lobby, are empty at this moment. And we kind of timed it that way so that we could do this. So we can hang their work inside these 2 galleries for the weekend. So by Friday afternoon, everything that they want to have on view is displayed. And you can come in and see the artworks from the artists through Saturday and Sunday. Sunday is our annual community day. So that is a free day for everyone. Admission is free. We have a ton of other activities, including this like culmination of the Plein Air Festival happening that day. But Friday evening, we will have a little reception for the opening of the exhibition. So all the artists are invited. The public is invited to come and see the work. And we also announce a number of awards that evening. So that's happening Friday night. Touring of the exhibition is happening Saturday. And then on Sunday, we invite the artists back again to do what we call this a quick draw, or we're calling it a high speed painting. So it's essentially they only have 2 hours in the morning on August 2nd to create something that then we do another award of those pieces that they create that morning. That's announced at 1:00 on Sunday afternoon.
That's cool. It's cool because you could, you might see people out during the week painting, and then you get to come back and see the finished piece. So that makes it really special. What strikes me is that we move through our days really quickly, it seems like. I can't believe we're at the end of the month already. When this comes out, it'll be in mid-July. Do you think that painting outdoors almost force us to slow down and notice things that we otherwise wouldn't?
Absolutely. I mean, the notion of really any creative pursuit is asking you to take a moment, think about what's inspiring you, think about what tools you have at hand and how you're going to recreate that. But certainly with plein air painting, like we said at the beginning of this call, you're literally painting outdoors. The component of the studio gives you a lot more of a controlled environment. You can have a lot more of your tools available. There's not bugs flying into your paint. There's not the wind blowing your scene off course. So it really does force you to think about that moment in time. And I think it's different than even taking a photograph. Certainly a lot of artists work from photographs because you can capture that moment at that time and then work on it later. But being outside, being a part of that environment, it really does. I mean, it forces you to kind of use all of your senses, right? As you're creating something, you're not only seeing something visually, but you're hearing all the sounds that are around. Maybe it's boats in the water, maybe it's people talking as they walk down the street, dogs barking. You can smell food being cooked, maybe if it's downtown. I mean, it's really putting yourself in that moment. And I think that's a lot of what these artists are trying to capture is that moment that they're experiencing.
Is there a day or a specific event that you think is really special and people shouldn't miss?
Yes, I would definitely encourage people to go onto our website and see all the various different themes of where we invited artists to be. I think what's going to be some of the most interesting is probably at Take a Bite or at the Shirt Factory. So the Shirt Factory every Thursday evening in the summer has a whole food corral and an artist open studio. So we've invited artists over there. But I think that is going to capture, that is going to capture Glens Falls, right? Like that's going to capture the scenes of downtown Glens Falls, of these wonderful old buildings that we have that have been turned into just something very creative to celebrate the art. So I think that's going to be a really nice celebration to maybe, and what the outcome of those works might be a really nice way to visually put this festival on the map. And then certainly I have to say the days that we're painting at the Hyde, because
At the Hyde, the grounds are beautiful at the Hyde.
There's so much to see just outside. You have the really cool industrial scene, which I think is very reminiscent of Impressionist themes, and so you have that going on all the time right next to this world-class collection. The artists can come in and be inspired by something they see inside and then go back outside and paint more. So I guess those would be my two places where I'm most excited to see the artwork.
For listeners who may not know, the Shirt Factory is literally an old shirt factory right in downtown Glens Falls that has been reimagined as an artist space. And it's, we'll put links to this in our show notes. But the Hyde aside, which I think is a destination and great, the Shirt Factory is a great thing to pair with a trip to the Hyde because it's right kind of in that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's very walkable.
And now they have all the murals that they're doing there now too. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, they engage a lot of artists. Not only is the rooms inside used as artist studios and businesses for different creative, there's a bookstore in there, there's an antique store in there, there's lots of things. But the management there has engaged a lot of freelance artists to create not only murals on the wall of the Shirt Factory, but also they have all these shipping container boxes that they brought in and created like segmented murals that artists, and they continue to work on them. So if you go, you may see artists working live.
It's a nice commercial for the Shirt Factory. You're welcome.
They're a great partner, I have to say. We have lots of great partners for this.
Yeah. So. If someone has absolutely no artistic experience, are there opportunities to participate just beyond watching?
Yes. We have a little, well, I should say we have a little meetup for artists the first night. It is happening at Common Roots, another great partner for us down in South Glens Falls. But that's specifically for artists to kind of mingle and meet one another, but we're not like a private group. So if you want to go meet some of the artists Monday Monday evening, you could go and meet them. But also we actually have a workshop for youth, for kids 10 and up are invited to come and explore what it means to do a painting plein air. They're going to work with one of the artists who's actually participating in the workshop. She's taught these workshops before, and so it's all about exploring color in landscape painting. And that's on Thursday, July 30th. And the teaching artist is Sandra Jabot. So we're really excited about having her teach a group of students. So that's a way that you could get involved in kind of creating some artwork while you're here.
That's so cool. For somebody who's listening to this and thinking, yeah, I don't think that's my jam, I'm just not an art person. What would you say?
I would say that even if you feel like you're not interested in experiencing whatever visually they create, I think it's just interesting to see someone outside doing something that you don't usually see. Like you don't usually see like an easel set up, and maybe they have an umbrella and they're painting and they have all these distractions, but they're still doing their work and kind of engaging with the community. So I guess I would say, even if you're not really that interested, maybe you're interested in Glens Falls and you want to kind of explore the city. which I would say is quite rich for the variety of different cultural experiences that you can have here in this town. And the history of this town is really, really interesting. So I might say that, and that there's a lot of other partners in town who are part of the Glens Falls Arts District that can help illuminate, that vision beyond just visual art.
Right, right. Yeah. If if you haven't been to Glens Falls, especially for our listeners that are coming up to the Adirondacks from, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, it's a really great place to stop. It's a pretty city. It does have this, the history of paper mills, and so there's a big industrial side to it, but beautiful buildings, great restaurants, great shops, and even I always like Cooper's Cave, which is what inspired James Fenimore Cooper to write Last of the Mohegans. But I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent today. I'm impressed in this conversation. I mean, I love learning more about the festival, but as a sidebar, I can't believe how many different organizations in Glens Falls are part of this. It's really an amazing network and partnership. It feels like lots of businesses are invested in making this happen.
Yeah, I would say we are so grateful for all of the community partners that we get to work with on this, but as well as other things. But we because this is not, it's branded as the Hyde Collection Glens Falls Plein Air Festival, but it is a Glens Falls Plein Air Festival. So we're really, really happy to be able to celebrate businesses and other organizations in Glens Falls and the surrounding region. So I really just want to say a huge thank you to Common Roots for hosting our artist reception. We also are really grateful for the Collaborative, which is a group of businesses in Glens Falls who obviously are invested in tourism and driving business to our economy here. And they were really excited. They host the Take a Bite events, and so they were really excited to be a part of this. The Shirt Factory and our other Glens Falls Arts District partners, who are all businesses right here in downtown, and nonprofits who are down in downtown Glens Falls, and that can, also benefit from such a rich arts culture here. And then we also extended up to our partners in Bolton Landing. So the Sembrick, the Bolton Historical Museum, and the Sagamore Resort are also all supporting us in allowing artists to come to their spaces, as well as the Sagamore is even sponsoring an award. So there's a cash prize for the best landscape of the lake from their property. So we're so grateful for all these partners for being involved in it.
That's awesome. That sounds so great. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for spending time with us today. This has been really opened my mind to this, and I'm definitely going to plan to drop by Glens Falls during the festival. It'll be, I think, fun. I don't want to stalk the artists, but I think it'll be fun to sort of find them where they are. Before we release you into the wild, we always ask our guests to share one of their favorite places in the Adirondacks. And it can be anything from a hike or a paddle to a brewery or another museum. You just can't say the Hyde. What's one of your favorite spots?
That's a great question. Every summer since I've lived in this area, my family and I have gone to Rogers Rock Campground, actually, up in Hague, New York, and right on Lake George, and just really enjoyed being on the beach there, doing the hike there, and going into Ticonderoga, taking a look around town, talking about another arts-centric town. I really feel like Ticonderoga is doing a lot in the arts right now, which is so wonderful. So I guess that's what I was saying right now. That's one of my favorite places.
Yeah, nobody's mentioned Rogers Rock before, so that's great. And you're right, when we were talking about the Shirt Factory, it made me think about the murals that are going on in Ticonderoga, which is really a cool thing too. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. Can you tell our listeners again what the URL is for the Hyde if they want to get more information about this?
Yep, they can go to hydecollection.org.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin.
All right. Thanks, Jane.
One of my biggest takeaways from today's conversation is that, art has a remarkable way of slowing us down. It invites us to notice the changing light, the colors, the textures, and the everyday beauty we often walk right by. Even when we're in such a beautiful place as the Adirondacks, there are things that you can miss because you're thinking about, I've got to get to the store, I've got to pick up the kids, I've got to send that birthday present. But it's really good to take a pause and look around you and see what's happening. If today's conversation inspires you to spend a little more time looking instead of rushing, then we've done our job. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please help others discover ADK Talks by subscribing, rating, and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And as we always like to remind you, you can find more stories, travel inspiration, recommendations, and podcast episodes at adktaste.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter so you never miss an episode or a story. And if you have a question, you can always email us at info@adktaste.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on ADK Talks. Bye-bye.